This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Hello YouTube, it's Accurate again, back with another video from the home studio. Today let's talk about the Polyend Tracker, this one. And I know I am about 18 months late to this little party, so this is not going to be a review. This is just me sharing my thoughts and opinions on this one after I've been using it for a couple of weeks. And I'm also trying to answer the question, is it good for beat making? The short answer there is something in the lines of, well, yeah, it kind of is. But the better question would be, is it fun to make beats on? Where the short answer is yes. It's a lot of fun and it's really different from anything else that I have in the studio. My MPCs, Machine, SP404, this still offers sampling functionality and sequencing and sample editing and all that, but it's different from anything else. So let's get into it. So the Polyend Tracker is a piece of hardware, and to me it's a really beautiful looking piece of hardware, by the way. This is a completely standalone device. It allows you to record samples, edit samples, sequence music, and you're also able to play your samples in Wavetable or granular mode, and that way create different synth sounds out of pretty much any piece of audio. That's kind of cool. It runs a micro SD card. You're able to record from the audio inputs or from the built-in FM radio that's over here, if that's something you want to do. But what really sets this one apart from pretty much anything else that's on the market right now is that this one runs a tracker software inside of it. If you don't know what a tracker software is, maybe go look that up because it's actually kind of cool. But in the 90s, before we had like DAWs with nice graphical interfaces, we had trackers to sequence audio, basically. So by going into the pattern sequencer, here we have a sequence for 32 different steps going. So it's all about the numbers, all about the values. You can't see piano roll, you can't see the audio waveforms or anything in the sequencer. This is just what it is. This one happens to be limited to 8 tracks, but a track can very well play more than one single sample. Just one sample at a time, because the tracks are monophonic like that. The different steps allows you to pick an instrument, pick a note to be played, and 2 different slots for different effects. And these effects aren't like normal effects that you might think of in a DAW. I mean, there's not like compressors or limiters or different types of reverbs or anything. Instead, these different effects allows you to trigger different settings for each individual step. So it's basically a way to automate different values like the volume, the panning, the microtune, glide, tempo changes, rolls, randomize different values and stuff like that. Kind of cool, kind of powerful when you start thinking about it per step. Now, if you're not used to working with a sequencer that looks like this might look intimidating and maybe a bit stiff or quantized. It doesn't have to be, because Polyend Tracker allows you to record stuff into the sequencer off the grid manually, unquantized. And what it actually does, if you allow it to, is that it records a value into one of the effect slots and assigns that to micromove. Here you're able to go from 0, which is basically triggering the sample on the step, up to 100, which seems to allow the sample to be triggered on the next step. So in this case, 100 steps between the different steps. So you're definitely in control of your groove or your drums or whatever you're doing. And of course that applies to every single step on my 32-step sequence, but a sequence or a pattern could be up to 128 steps in length, and then I can chain my patterns together and create up to 255 different patterns. And that's done in the song mode, which looks like this, so I'm definitely able to create a full track or a full song inside of the Polyend Tracker if I wanted to. And as far as the different tracks goes, sure, they are monophonic, but I could do like the kick and the snare on the same track if I wanted to, and I could still be in control of the settings and the parameters for every single sample, and every single step for that matter. Now let's load up a sample real quick. Let's go into samples, accurate, and let's pick one of these guys. Sure. Importing a sample takes a little bit of time, but you know, that's what it is. let's go into the sample playback menu, and here I have a few different options in how I want my sample to be played. One shot, loop modes, and whatnot. And since I'm an old school sample-based hip-hop beatmaker, I really enjoy the beat slice functionality inside of the Polyend Tracker. Here I'm able to just add different slice points, go between them, adjust the different start points, and basically just chop my samples up like I'm used to. And if I'm happy with that, let's just move out to the pattern sequencer and start recording some stuff, or start programming the notes into the sequencer. Let's hit record. Let's put that one right there. Let's go down to 13. Let's do that one. 25. 27. So that's really not too complicated, right? Now, if I want to change this instrument somehow, let's go into instrument parameters. Let's go here. Let's change the tuning down to there. Let's take it back up a little bit, and let's maybe, let's automate the volume, for instance. Increase the attack for the envelope, just to make it a little bit softer. And why not just put some drums to this too? So on track 2, instrument, kick. And step 5, let's go for the snare. And at this point, I can actually do something pretty cool when it comes to the sequencer, because here I want to add a snare every 8th step of the entire pattern. So I'm going to increase the step value here to 8, and then just record the snare there. It steps down 8 steps, and I can just enter the notes, and here we are. But let's also add a few kicks in between the different snare hits, and let's do that manually. So let's go up top, record, play. Just like that, the kicks are added to the sequence, and it also recorded these micro steps that I talked about before. Micro move, in this case 51, in this case 0 actually, in this case +6. And now I kind of want to change the volume of the snare because it seems a little bit loud to me. It's too loud. So let's go into the instrument parameters, pick that one, go here and change the volume like so. We can change the tuning. All the normal stuff that you're kind of expecting. And the Polyend Tracker doesn't have a lot of normal effects built in inside of it, but it has a delay and a reverb. So let's apply the reverb onto the sample real quick. Track 1, instrument parameters. Here we are, effects, and let's increase the reverb send and the delay send. Cool. Let's actually just lower our bit depth as well for that sample. Can go kind of crazy if we wanted to. In this case, 10. So far, I've used 2 different tracks on the sequencer, one for the kick and snare and one for the chopped up sample. Now let's load up one more thing on track 3 over here. Sample loader. Let's go back to the stock sounds, wavetables. Let's that's what it is. Now if I go into sample playback and I switch the playing mode into wavetable, I can change the position of the waveform. Or I could go into my instrument parameters and assign my wavetable position to be controlled by an envelope or an LFO, or use the sample as a granular synth and go into granular mode. Change the shape from square to triangle or whatever, like like so. And here the position parameter could also be automated by an LFO or an envelope. So this becomes kind of powerful when you think about it, especially on a per step basis inside of the sequencer. Because no matter what note gets played by the sequencer, you're always able to assign one of the effects to stuff like position, for instance, which here translates to the position of the wavetable or the granular synth on this page. I wasn't really supposed to make music in this one, but you know, that's just what happens when things are fun. Now a quick message from today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators. Learn new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity. Skillshare has a lot of different classes that might appeal to you on topics like music production, illustration, graphic design, marketing, and much more. Most classes are under 60 minutes with short lessons to easily fit into any schedule. I've taken a class called YouTube Success, Script, Shoot and Edit with MKBHD, taught by Marcus Brownlee. I've taken a class on productivity by Thomas Frank. I've taken a class on music mixing by Young Guru. And it's honestly a great way for me to get inspired to keep on being creative and doing stuff. Everything on the site is specifically curated for learning, meaning there are no ads, and they're always launching new premium classes to make it easy to stay focused and follow along wherever your creativity takes you. Discover what you can make with classes for every skill level, because whether you're a dabbler or a pro, a hobbyist or a master, you are a creative. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description below will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare so you can start exploring your creativity today. Thanks a lot to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the Polyend Tracker. So far everything kind of works as you would expect, but I'm thinking a lot when I'm working on this one, which kind of allows me to pay more attention to the details of each individual step for each individual instrument, which could be a good thing, but also maybe a bad thing. Who knows? And as I said, the tracks themselves are monophonic by nature, but if you happen to play a chord with a MIDI keyboard connected to this or on the pads themselves, it can actually record more notes than just one at a time, but it spreads out over the different tracks, which becomes confusing but also kind of powerful. One thing I haven't touched on here that is a big part of my workflow when I'm using the Polyend Tracker is the functionality called render selection. In this case, I could go here and let's select these two different tracks with all the corresponding steps. Then I can render the selection and basically save that as a new sample. So if resampling is a big part of your workflow on the SP404, for instance, this will come in really handy too, to be able to render whatever you've done on the tracks as one single thing and consolidate the different tracks into one. So the Polyend Tracker, a shitload of fun, but maybe not my first recommendation for someone who wants to get into beat making casually without any prior knowledge about music production at all. By the way, I haven't mentioned that it actually runs NES games. It's compatible with NES ROMs in some way. It has some type of emulation running inside of it, so I've been playing Mega Man 2 on it. That's kind of cool. I also need to point out that my Polyend Tracker has actually died and frozen up on me a couple of times by now when I've just been working on beats normally, not doing anything specifically hard on it. It just froze up, became totally unresponsive, and I had to take the power cable out and plug it back in. What's cool though is that when it turns back on, I'm left at the same point where it died, so I haven't lost anything like that. But it's a little bit worrying. Maybe it's my specific unit, maybe it's something that's going to be fixed in a future firmware update, who knows. Now, is it good for beat making? Again, my answer is a little bit like that, because sure, it works, it's efficient, and it does pretty much everything that I need from a sampling perspective. It doesn't come with a bunch of instruments that are pre-made and you have to put a lot of work into sequencing things. So sure, it has its drawbacks, especially for someone who's new to beat making or for someone who wants to get their first piece of gear. For someone like me, I like how it makes me think about my production in a different way, to pay more attention on each individual step, each individual instrument. that becomes kind of fun. So in one way, it makes me think about my beats in a more simplistic way because it's a little bit finicky. In one way, it makes me think about my beats in a more elaborate and advanced way because it's just as easy to trigger one of the effects on one of the steps as it is to trigger an actual sample on the step. So it's kind of hard to explain, but it's fun, it's special, unique, different. I like it a lot. I really, really do. But again, this is not a proper review, just my thoughts and opinions about this one after a few weeks. Now, if you have anything more that you want to know about this one, any questions or anything you want me to dig deeper into, comment in the comment section below. I'm gonna try to reply or maybe even make a, follow-up video. Who knows, maybe that's gonna happen. Surely you're gonna see this one more on the channel for, a normal beat making session, something like that. But for now, this is it. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope to see you guys in the next one. Until then, ha det gott.